The note on Amaka's pillow said, "The first collection, 47 hours remaining." But what none of them knew as they stood frozen in that bedroom, what they couldn't have known, was that their 4-year-old daughter wasn't gone at all. She was 30 feet below them in the building's ventilation system, her small body wedged between cold metal walls, listening to footsteps in the hallway and voices speaking Korean about hurting her daddy. In the next 20 minutes, while her family tore apart the apartment searching for her, Amaka would hear 3 separate phone calls between the nanny and someone she kept calling the elder, and those conversations would reveal exactly how deep the betrayal went. But first, her grandmother had to scream. If you're just joining this story, parts 1 through 4 are available on our channel and linked in the description below. You'll want that context because we're walking into the most intense episode yet. For everyone who's been here from the beginning, what happens next will test everything this family has survived. Let's go. Adani's scream came from her belly, from her soul, from the place where grandmothers keep their worst nightmares locked away. It wasn't loud, it was something worse than loud. It was the sound of a woman who'd already lost too much in her life, understanding she might be about to lose more. Chidinma heard it from the living room where she'd been arguing with Ji-hoon about safe houses, and felt every muscle in her body turn to ice. Her feet moved before her brain caught up, running toward her mother's voice, while Ji-hoon's footsteps pounded right behind her. Adani stood in the doorway of the children's room, one hand pressed to her mouth, the other pointing at Amaka's bed like she was identifying something dead. The princess blanket was thrown back. The pillow held a folded piece of paper. And the bed was empty in a way that made Chidinma's vision tunnel and her ears ring. No. The word came out of Chidinma's throat like broken glass. No, 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 no. She was in the room now, ripping apart the bed, throwing pillows across the floor, yanking open the closet door hard enough that the hangers clattered and fell. Amaka, baby, where are you? This isn't a game. Amaka! Ji-hoon grabbed the note from the pillow. His hand shook so badly the paper rattled like leaves in wind. The first collection, 47 hours remaining. His voice was hollow, dead. The voice of a man watching his worst fear materialize. They took her. While we were distracted arguing, they came in here and took our daughter. How? Chidinma spun toward the window, locked from the inside, the latch still engaged. She ran to the bedroom door, no scratches on the lock, no signs of forced entry. Ji-hoon, nothing's broken. How did they get in without us hearing? Sun-hee, Adani's voice cut through the panic like a blade. The nanny has keys to this entire apartment. She could walk in and out anytime she wanted. We gave her access because we trusted her. Ji-hoon was already moving toward the phone in the living room, his fingers fumbling with the buttons. I'm calling Detective Park. She needs to know there's been a kidnapping. We need every cop in Seoul looking for... No! Chidinma crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed his wrist before he could finish dialing. Ji-hoon, think. You're already a suspect in Minho's disappearance. If we call the police about a kidnapped child right now, what does that look like? It looks like you're creating a distraction. It looks like you're trying to make yourself look like a victim so they stop investigating you. I don't care what it looks like. Ji-hoon's voice cracked, tears streaming down his face now. Our daughter is gone. Every second we stand here arguing is another second they're taking her farther away. Chidinma, I can't lose her. I can't lose any of you. I'd rather go to prison than let them hurt our children. And if you go to prison, who protects the rest of us? Who protects Chidi and Gozi? Who keeps Mama safe? Ji-hoon, we have to be smart about this. But is she really? Adana interrupted. Both of them turned to stare at her. Is she really gone? What are you talking about? Ji-hoon demanded. We just found... Look at this room. Adani moved to the center, her eyes scanning every surface. Really, look, there's no struggle, nothing knocked over, no broken glass. That window is locked from the inside. You can't lock it from outside. And this note, she picked it up, studying it, it's too clean, too theatrical. If professional criminals took a 4-year-old child, why would they leave a note giving you a timeline? Why give you hope that you can get her back? Why not just make her disappear? Chidinma felt something shift in her chest. You think this is, what, psychological warfare? I think, Adane said slowly, moving toward the ventilation grate near the baseboard, that if they really had Amaka, we'd know. There would be proof of life, a photo of her with today's newspaper, a recording of her voice, something concrete. This note tells you nothing except that you should panic. She knelt beside the grate. Has anyone checked if she might have hidden? Ji-hoon dropped to his knees so fast, Chidinma heard his kneecaps crack against the marble. He pressed his ear flat to the floor and knocked. 3 quick raps, 2 slow, 3 quick again. A pattern Chidinma had never heard before, never knew existed. The seconds that followed felt like drowning. Chidinma held her breath. Adane's hands clasped together in prayer, and Ji-hoon stayed absolutely motionless, his whole body tense like a wire about to snap. Then it came, faint, muffled, traveling through the building's bones. 3 quick knocks, 2 slow, 3 quick again. "Oh my God," Chidinma breathed. "Oh my God, she's alive!" Ji-hoon was already moving, running to the kitchen and yanking open cabinets with shaking hands until he found the one with the false back. He ripped it open to reveal the ventilation shaft's access panel, a dark square mouth that led into the building's mechanical guts. "Amaka!" His voice cracked with desperate relief. "It's Daddy, baby. The bad people are gone now. You're safe. You can come out." For a moment, nothing but the sound of Chidinma's heartbeat in her ears. Then a small, terrified voice echoed through the metal tunnels. "You promise? You really, really promise they're gone?" "I promise on everything I love. Come toward my voice, sweetheart. Follow Daddy's voice home." The sound of small hands and knees scraping through metal, the sound of a child crawling through spaces never meant for human beings, made Chidinma want to scream and cry and thank every god she'd ever heard of. The scraping got closer, closer, and then Amaka's face appeared in the opening, streaked with dust that had turned to mud with her tears, her Princess Elsa pajamas torn at both knees and filthy with grime, cobwebs in her hair, but alive, breathing, real. Chidinma pulled her daughter out of that shaft and held her so tight Amaka made a small squeaking sound. She could feel the child's heart hammering against her chest like a trapped bird. "You're okay. Mama's got you. You're safe now, baby. You're safe." "I heard her, Mama." Amaka's voice was barely a whisper against Chidinma's neck. Her small body trembled so violently it felt like she might shake apart. "I heard her. The nanny, Sun-hee. I woke up to use the bathroom and she was in the hallway. She was on her phone speaking Korean, and I know some words from school now, and I heard her say bad things. She said, they were coming tonight to take all of us. She said we were loose ends that needed cleaning up. So I remembered what you taught us, Daddy. Hide if bad people come. Don't make noise. Wait for you to find me." Ji-hoon pulled them both into his arms, his shoulders shaking with sobs he was trying to suppress so he wouldn't scare the children more. "You're so smart, so brave. You saved yourself, Amaka. You saved all of us." "Where are the boys?" Adane's voice cut through the moment. Chidinma felt her blood turn to ice all over again. They ran to the adjacent bedroom and found Chidi and Ngozi still asleep, curled together like puppies in a nest of blankets, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding around them. Adane immediately positioned herself between the sleeping children and the door. Chidinma noticed her mother had picked up the cast-iron skillet from the kitchen on her way through. Nobody commented on it. "If Sun-hee was on the phone," Ji-hoon said, his voice hardening into something cold and calculating, "that means someone knows we heard the intercom threat. Someone knows we're alert. We need to—" The sound of a key sliding into the front door lock stopped him mid-sentence. Everything happened in half seconds after that. Ji-hoon moved like water, fluid and fast, pulling a gun from somewhere, the hidden panel in the kitchen island that Chidinma had discovered weeks ago when she'd been searching for his secrets. He positioned himself between the hallway and his family, and the man Chidinma saw in that moment wasn't her husband anymore. This was someone older, harder, the version of Ji-hoon who'd been the most dangerous man in Seoul before he decided to be a father instead. Chidinma pulled Amaka and moved toward the boys' room where Adane stood ready with that skillet. Her mother's face held an expression Chidinma had never seen in 30 years of knowing her, something cold and utterly without mercy. This wasn't the woman who'd raised her with prayers and patience. This was someone who'd survived Lagos streets in the 80s, someone who'd learned lessons about violence that she tried to forget when she found God and safety. The door opened. Sun-hee walked in humming a K-pop song, something bright and cheerful that sounded obscene in the context of what was happening. She wore scrubs like she just finished a hospital shift, and she was pulling out her phone when she looked up and saw them all awake. Saw Amaka in Chidinma's arms covered in ventilation dust, saw Ji-hoon standing there with murder in his eyes. Her pleasant mask, the warm smile she always wore when playing with the children, the gentle voice she used for bedtime stories, slipped for just a fraction of a second. Chidinma saw calculation flash behind those eyes, saw her weighing options and odds and outcomes with the speed of someone who'd done this before. Then the mask snapped back into place with practiced ease. "Oh, you're all awake," Sun-hee said in Korean, then switching to heavily accented English for Chidinma's benefit. Her voice was bright with false concern. "I got an alert on my phone about the building's fire alarm system. I was worried about the children, so I came to check on them. Is everything—" Adane hit her with the cast iron skillet before she finished the sentence. The sound was sickening, metal connecting with skull with a wet, hollow thunk that would haunt Chidinma's dreams for months afterwards. Sun-hee's eyes rolled back in her head, and she crumbled like someone had cut all her strings at once, collapsing in a boneless heap of limbs and scrubs. Her phone skittered across the marble floor, and Ji-hoon was on it in a heartbeat, scooping it up before the screen could lock. "Mama!" Chidinma gasped, torn between shock and a terrible kind of gratitude. "Lagos taught me that hesitation gets you killed," Adane said calmly in Igbo, setting the skillet down with hands that didn't shake at all. That woman was about to press a panic button the moment she realized Amaka wasn't in her bed. She was going to call her people and tell them we knew they were coming. We don't have time for mercy tonight. Ji-hoon was already going through Sun-hee's pockets with clinical efficiency. He found a second phone, a cheap burner, anonymous and untraceable, plastic zip ties in her jacket pocket, a syringe filled with something clear that caught the light wrong, and folded in her scrubs, a piece of paper with their home address written in Korean. All 5 targets. Collect by 0400 hours. But it was what Ji-hoon found on her smartphone, the one that looked normal and innocent, the one she probably used to text her friends and scroll social media, that made his face go absolutely white. "What is it?" Chidinma demanded, moving closer. "Ji-hoon, what did you find?" "Messages." His voice was hollow. "To building security, to Kim at the front desk, to the concierge who always asks about the children, to the maintenance supervisor who fixed our refrigerator last week, to the overnight parking attendant, to the weekend doorman." He looked up at them, and the fear in his eyes was naked and raw. "We're not dealing with one spy, Chidinma. We're not being watched by a single plant. The entire building is compromised. Every person we've smiled at, every person we've trusted with access to our home and our children and our lives, they're all on someone's payroll." Chidinma felt the walls of the penthouse closing in. They weren't in a home anymore. They were in a cage surrounded by predators wearing friendly faces. "Then we leave," Chidinma said, forcing her voice to stay level, even though her hands were shaking. "Right now. We don't pack bags, we don't wait for morning, we take the children, and we go." "Go where?" Adane asked the question that was already forming in Chidinma's mind. "If they have people in this building, they have people in every building you own, every property registered under your name, every safe house they could predict you'd run to." Before anyone could answer, there was a sharp, professional knock at the door. Then a voice in Korean. "Seoul Metropolitan Police, we need to speak with Kang Ji-hoon regarding the Minho investigation. Please open the door." Chidinma felt ice flood her veins. They couldn't open that door with Sun-hee unconscious on the floor. They couldn't explain the gun in Ji-hoon's hand and the terror on their faces, or why they looked like people preparing to run. "Bathroom," Ji-hoon said quietly. Drag her to the bathroom, lock the door, make it look like she's using it now. They moved fast. Chidinma and Adani grabbing Sunhee under the arms and dragging her dead weight across the marble, while Ji-hoon hid the gun and tried to compose his face into something that didn't scream guilty. They shoved Sunhee into the bathroom, locked it from the outside with the emergency key, and returned to the living room just as Ji-hoon opened the front door. 2 uniformed officers stood there with Detective Park behind them. Her expression was apologetic, but professional, and Chidinma saw genuine regret in her eyes. "Mr. Kang, I'm sorry to come at this hour, but Minho's wife has made serious allegations that we can't ignore. This case is going to require a formal questioning." "Now? When?" Ji-hoon asked, his voice remarkably calm. "My children are asleep. My wife is terrified after the threats we received earlier. Can this wait until morning?" "We're gonna have to do this," one of the officers said. He was young, maybe late 20s, with the eager look of someone trying to make detective. He pulled out ankle monitoring equipment, the kind they use for house arrest. Given the severity of the accusations, embezzlement, threats of violence, possible connection to organized crime, we're placing you under house arrest pending the investigation. You're not to leave this residence without permission from the court. Chidinma watched them fit the monitor around Ji-hoon's ankle, watched her husband become a prisoner in their own home while enemies surrounded them in the building. This was the enemy's plan, Chidinma realized. Isolate Ji-hoon, make him helpless, make him watch while they closed in on his family. Psychological torture before the final strike. The officers demonstrated how the monitor worked. If Ji-hoon moved more than 50 feet from the apartment's registered center point, it would trigger an alert. Police would be notified immediately. Violation of house arrest meant immediate jail time. Detective Park lingered after the officers left. "Mrs. Kang," she said quietly, switching to English, "Minho's wife came in today with phone records, text messages. She claims your husband threatened his husband over embezzled funds. She has dates, times, witnesses who heard the calls. We have to investigate this." "Those records are fabricated," Chidinma said. "Maybe," Park agreed. "But until we can prove that, he stays here. I'm sorry, I really am." Her eyes flicked toward the bathroom door where they'd hidden Sunhee, and something in her expression made Chidinma think Park knew more than she was saying. "And be very careful, Mrs. Kang. I really shouldn't be saying this, but I think someone powerful wants your husband contained. Someone with resources to manipulate evidence and buy people in positions of authority. Watch everyone. Trust no one." After Park left, they reconvened in the living room. Ji-hoon tested the ankle monitor, walked toward the front door until it started beeping, a high-pitched warning that meant he was approaching the boundary. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own home, while enemies circled. "So we improvise," Chidinma said. "If you can't investigate, then I will." "Absolutely not." Ji-hoon's voice was sharp. "You're not going out there alone. Not with the syndicate watching, not with... I'm not alone. I have Mama. And I'm not going anywhere physically, not yet. First, I'm going to figure out exactly what Minho's been doing, where the money really went, who he's really working for." She spent the next 4 hours at the dining table while Adan kept watch and Ji-hoon paced like a caged animal, that ankle monitor beeping whenever he got too close to the perimeter. What Chidinma found in Ji-hoon's business accounts was worse than simple embezzlement. It was systematic destruction dressed up as legitimate business. Minho had been diverting funds for 3 years through a network of shell companies so complex it must have taken legal expertise to set up. Money flowing through Singapore, then the Cayman Islands, then Dublin, then back to South Korea through businesses registered in Busan. The amounts were staggering, billions of won, vanishing into corporate structures that looked legitimate on paper, but dissolved into nothing when you tried to trace them to actual operations. But Minho had made mistakes. Small ones. The kind you make when you're following orders from someone smarter than you and don't fully understand the system you're operating. He'd used the same law firm to register 3 of the shell companies. He signed documents with a witness who appeared on the board of directors for a Busan shipping company. And he sent one email, just one, 3 months ago, that he'd forgotten to delete. Timeline confirmed, target isolated, awaiting final authorization, KJS. KJS, Ji-hoon breathed when she showed him. Minho isn't working alone. I need to talk to Minho's wife, Chidinma said. Detective Park said she genuinely believes you're dangerous, which means she doesn't know her husband is the real criminal. If I can convince her to help us, she won't talk to you, Ji-hoon interrupted. Chidinma, these are Korean business associates. They're traditional, conservative. They won't take you seriously. He stopped himself, but the implication hung in the air. I'm what? I'm African? I'm a woman? I'm not from this world? Say it, Ji-hoon. Finish the sentence. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. And you're right. They won't take me seriously. They'll look at me and see someone they can dismiss, someone who doesn't understand their language, their culture, their business rules. And that's exactly why I'll get information you couldn't. They'll underestimate me. They'll say things around me they'd never say around you. And I'm going to weaponize every single assumption they make about me. Ji-hoon looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. When he hung up, he said, Minho's wife agreed to meet you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Her lawyer will be present, but she's willing to talk. Good, Chidinma said. I spent 5 years feeling nothing. After the ambush, after the impotence, after everything broke inside me, I felt nothing. It was peaceful in a terrible way. And now I feel everything. Every time you leave my sight, I imagine terrible things happening to you. Every phone call could be someone telling me they have you. Every sound in the night could be them coming back. He looked at her with eyes that held too much pain. I don't know which is worse, feeling nothing or feeling everything. But I know this. The terror of losing you is the worst thing I've ever felt. Chidinma crossed to him and took his face in her hands. The feeling is worse, always. But it's also what makes us human. It's what makes love real instead of just an idea. You feel everything now because you have everything to lose. And we're going to fight to keep it. The next morning, Chidinma met Park Ji-won in a cafe in Gangnam. Neutral territory, public enough to be safe. The woman was younger than Chidinma expected, maybe late 20s, with the exhausted look of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. Her lawyer sat beside her, a stern Korean man in an expensive suit who looked at Chidinma like she was something he'd accidentally stepped in on the sidewalk. Mrs. Kang, the lawyer said in Korean, not bothering with English. My client agreed to this meeting as a courtesy, but she has nothing to say that will help your husband's criminal case. The evidence against him is substantial and well documented. I'm not here about his case, Chidinma replied in Korean, enjoying the surprise that flickered across both their faces. I'm here about the truth. Your client thinks my husband is a dangerous criminal. I think her husband is either a thief or being manipulated by someone far more dangerous than either one of us. Maybe we're both right. Maybe we help each other find out. Ji-won studied Chidinma with red-rimmed eyes. Your husband threatened mine. I heard the phone call myself. Minho was terrified. What did my husband say exactly? Chidinma asked, pulling out her laptop. Word for word. He said if Minho didn't return what he stole, there would be consequences. He said my husband had made powerful enemies by betraying him, that the Busan Syndicate doesn't forgive theft. And did your husband explain what he supposedly stole? Money, Ji-won's voice was defensive now, from the company accounts. Millions of won. Did you see this money? Chidinma leaned forward. Did your husband suddenly have expensive things? New accounts. Anything that would show he actually had the funds he supposedly embezzled. Ji-won hesitated, And in that hesitation, Chidinma saw the crack in her certainty. He said he was keeping it safe, that he'd invested it in what? Chidinma opened her laptop, turning it so Ji-won could see the screen. Because I've tracked every account your husband opened in the last 3 years. The money isn't there. It's being routed through shell companies registered in Busan to someone else. I don't really think your husband isn't a thief, Mrs. Park. He's a middleman. And whoever he's working for is using him to frame my husband while taking the money themselves. When they don't need him anymore, he becomes a liability, just like attorney Kim was. They killed Kim with a car bomb 2 weeks ago. Your husband could be next. The lawyer started to object, but Ji-won held up a hand. Her face had gone pale. Show me everything. Chidinma showed her. Every transaction. Every shell company. The trail that led to Busan and stopped at walls she couldn't penetrate without legal authority or police resources. There's someone powerful behind this, Chidinma said. Someone with connections in the legal system, in law enforcement, in business. Someone who's been planning this for years, and your husband is just a piece on their board. He used to call me, Ji-won whispered, every day from different numbers. He said he's protecting us. He said he's in hiding because your husband wants revenge. He's protecting you by lying to you, Chidinma said gently, because if you knew the truth, you'd be in danger too. Mrs. Park, Ji-won, where is your husband really? Who is he working for? Something broke in Ji-won's expression. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. I don't know. That was what he kept telling me until I could no longer reach him. Chidinma drove back to the penthouse with her mind racing. She had confirmation now. There was someone behind their woes. That person is the architect of everything. The embezzlement, the frame job, the syndicate connections, all of it designed to destroy Ji-won while making it look like legal consequences for legitimate crimes. When she walked through the door, Ji-hoon was on his phone, his face ashen. That was my bank. All accounts frozen, police use your order, everything we have, savings, investments, the children's education funds, everything, it's gone. We have whatever cash is in this apartment and nothing else. Chidinma felt the floor tilt under her feet. How much cash? Maybe $1,500 equivalent. That's it. We're fugitives now, Chidinma. Fugitives with 3 children and 0 money and an ankle monitor that will alert police the moment I cross the threshold of this apartment. Adane emerged from the children's room holding something small in her hand. Speaking of alerts, I found this in Ngozi's diaper bag, hidden in the lining. A tracker. Small and black and blinking with a tiny red light. The syndicate hadn't just infiltrated the building, they'd been tracking the children directly, knowing where they were every moment, probably for weeks. Chidinma looked at her husband, trapped by that ankle monitor, at her mother holding evidence they'd been watched like animals in a zoo, at the children sleeping in the next room, innocent and unaware that their entire world was collapsing, and she made a decision. We run. Tonight. We don't wait for them to make the next move. We go now. How? Ji-hoon gestured at his ankle. The moment I cross that threshold, every cop in Seoul gets an alert. Then we deal with that when it happens. Because staying here means dying. And I'm not ready to die yet. They started preparing for an escape they had no plan for, from enemies they couldn't count into a future that held nothing but uncertainty. But they were together. And sometimes, that had to be enough. They had maybe 20 minutes before someone realized Sun-hee hadn't checked in with her handlers. 20 minutes before the building's web of syndicate plants noticed the silence and came looking. 20 minutes to transform from a family trapped in their home into ghosts moving through Seoul's underground. The service corridors, Ji-hoon said, pulling up building schematics on his phone. It's our only way out. The main exits are being watched, we know that now, but the maintenance passages connect to the parking garage's utility level. There's an exit there that leads to the alley behind the building. It's not monitored because it's technically a fire code violation, but the building manager keeps it accessible for emergencies, like this one. The moment I cross the apartment threshold, this monitor screams, Ji-hoon said, tapping the black band around his ankle. Police response time in Gangnam is under 5 minutes. We'll have that long to get out of the building and disappear into the city. Adane was already moving, gathering the children with quiet efficiency. Amaka was scared, but trying to be brave, her small face set with determination. Chidi and Gozi were whimpering, picking up on the adults' terror even if they didn't understand it. "No bags," Adane said in Igbo. "Nothing that slows us down, just our bodies and our will to live." They moved through the kitchen to the access panel Ji-hoon had used to find Amaka earlier. The ventilation shaft gaped like a mouth leading into darkness. Ji-hoon went first, his broad shoulders barely fitting through the opening, and Chidinma heard him grunt with effort as he squeezed into the metal tunnel. Then Amaka, who'd done this before and knew the way. Then Adane, with Chidi on her back, moving with a strength that defied her age. Chidinma came last with Ngozi, pulling the panel closed behind them and praying no one would notice it had been disturbed. The service shaft was narrow and dark, lit only by emergency lighting that cast everything in sickly yellow. The metal walls pressed close enough that Chidinma could touch both sides at once. The air was stale and tasted of rust and old concrete. Somewhere in the distance, machinery hummed and groaned like the building was a living thing digesting them. They descended through the building's skeleton, crawling where the shafts were horizontal, climbing down metal ladders where they went vertical, moving as fast as they dared while trying to stay silent. On the 20th floor, Ji-hoon's ankle monitor started beeping, a high-pitched warning that meant he was leaving the designated area. By the 15th floor, it was screaming, a shrill alarm that echoed through the metal tunnels like a siren. "They know," Ji-hoon said, not stopping. "Police are getting the alert right now. Move faster."
Chidinma could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, could hear the children's frightened breathing, could hear Adane muttering prayers in Igbo under her breath. They hit the maintenance level, the building's guts, all exposed pipes and electrical conduits and machinery that hissed steam. The exit was ahead, a door marked with peeling red paint that said "Emergency Access Only" in Korean and English. That's when Chidinma heard the footsteps behind them. She turned and saw him, a man emerging from the shadows of the maintenance corridor. He wasn't wearing a uniform, wasn't carrying tools. He wore expensive dark clothes, and his hands hung loose at his sides in a way that suggested training, readiness, violence waiting to be unleashed. His eyes found Ji-hoon, and something that might have been satisfaction flickered across his face. "Mr. Kang," the man said in Korean, his voice professionally calm. "The elder would prefer you come quietly. Your family doesn't need to be involved in this. Just you." Ji-hoon set Amaka down gently, positioning her behind him. "Get behind me," he told his family quietly. "All of you, right now." "There's nowhere to go," the man said, taking a step closer. "The building is locked down. Police are coming. You're trapped. Make this easy." "I haven't made anything easy in my entire life. Why start now?" The man moved first, fast, trained, reaching inside his jacket for what was probably a weapon, but Ji-hoon was faster. He closed the distance in 2 explosive steps and grabbed the man's wrist before the gun cleared the holster. What happened next took maybe 5 seconds, but would replay in Chidinma's nightmares forever. Ji-hoon twisted the man's arm with a sickening crack, forcing him to drop the gun. The man tried to throw an elbow strike, but Ji-hoon caught it, absorbed the impact, and drove his palm into the man's throat. Chidinma heard cartilage crunch. The man made a wet gasping sound and staggered back, and Ji-hoon didn't let him recover. He grabbed the man's head with both hands, one on the jaw, one on the back of the skull, and twisted with brutal efficiency. The snap was like a tree branch breaking. The man's eyes went wide, then empty. He collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, dead before he hit the concrete floor. Ji-hoon stood over the body, his chest heaving, his hands shaking slightly. When he turned to look at his family, there was something in his eyes Chidinma had never seen before. Not quite remorse, not quite satisfaction, just cold certainty. He'd done what was necessary. He'd killed to protect them, and he'd do it again. "Cover their eyes," Chidinma heard herself say to Adane. Her mother had already moved, pressing Chidi and Ngozi's faces against her shoulders. Chidinma did the same with Amaka, holding her daughter's head against her chest so she wouldn't see the dead man on the floor. "Don't look, baby. Just keep walking. We're almost out." They stepped over the body and ran for the exit. Behind them, more footsteps. Voices shouting in Korean, the syndicate responding, the police responding, everyone converging on their location. Ji-hoon slammed through the emergency exit door and they burst into a Seoul alley at dusk. The sky was bruised purple and orange, the sun just beginning to set, and the smell hit Chidinma immediately. Trash from the dumpsters, steam from vents, the sharp metallic scent of the city's exhaust. Behind them, sirens. Ahead, the chaos of evening traffic 3 blocks away, where they could disappear into crowds. "Move!" Ji-hoon grabbed Amaka's hand and they ran. The alley was narrow, lined with loading docks and industrial refuse. Chidinma's bare feet, she had been wearing slippers when this nightmare started, hit rough pavement and she felt skin tear but didn't slow down. Ngozi was crying in her arms. Chidi was sobbing against the Dane's shoulder. Amaka was trying to be brave, but her small hand trembled in Ji-hoon's grip. They hit the main street and the city swallowed them. Seoul, at 6 p.m. on a weekday, was a river of humanity. Workers heading home, students heading to hagwons, delivery drivers weaving through traffic. Ji-hoon pulled them into the flow, using bodies as camouflage. "Hongdae Station," he said, pointing at the subway entrance 2 blocks north. "We split up in the crowd's underground, harder to track. Meet at—" "There!" a shout in Korean from behind them. Chidinma looked back and saw 3 men pushing through the crowd, moving with purpose. Not police uniforms, syndicate. And they were closing fast. "Run!" Ji-hoon said. "Don't look back, just run." They ran. Chidinma's lungs burned. Her feet left bloody footprints on the pavement. Adane was breathing hard, struggling to keep pace while carrying Chidi. But they ran because stopping meant dying. They were 50 meters from the subway entrance when Chidinma saw them. More men emerging from the east, cutting off their escape route, and more from the west. They were being herded, funneled, pushed exactly where the syndicate wanted them to go. "It's a trap," Ji-hoon said. "They're forcing us toward the station. They'll have people waiting underground." "Then what do we do?" Chidinma screamed. Ji-hoon looked at the men closing in from 3 directions, looked at his family, his wife, his children, his mother-in-law, looked at the subway entrance 30 meters away, and Chidinma watched him make a decision that would haunt both of them forever. "You go down," he said, grabbing Chidinma's shoulders. "Take them into the subway. Platform 2, line 4. Any train heading south. Get off at least 10 stations away. Find somewhere public, a shopping mall, a hospital, anywhere with crowds and cameras. Stay there until I contact you." "No!" Chidinma's voice was sharp with terror. "No, we're not splitting up. Ji-hoon, we stay together or we—" "There's no time!" Ji-hoon was already backing away, already drawing the hunter's attention by moving perpendicular to the subway entrance. "I'll lead them away from you. I'll contact you as soon as I can. Chidinma, I swear to God I'll find you." "Ji-hoon!" Chidinma screamed his name, reaching for him, but Adane's hand was on her arm, pulling her back. "We have to go," her mother said in Igbo, her voice breaking but firm. "Chidinma, the children. We have to save the children." Chidinma had to choose. Chase her husband into whatever trap was waiting, or save her children. She chose her children. She let Adane pull her toward the subway entrance, down the stairs into the underground, through the turnstiles with Ngozi prying in her arms and Amaka clutching her leg, and Chidi pressed against Adane's shoulder. A train was pulling into the platform. Line 4, heading south. Exactly what Ji-hoon had said. They pushed through the closing doors with seconds to spare. Chidinma pressed her face against the glass, looking back up to street level, searching the crowd for Ji-hoon. She saw him for just a moment, standing at the top of the subway stairs with 3 men surrounding him. Their eyes met across the distance, maybe 50 meters, maybe a lifetime. His lips moved, and Chidinma couldn't hear the words through the glass, but she'd been reading his lips for years. She knew what he was saying. I love you. I'll find you. Then the train pulled away, and the tunnel swallowed them, and he was gone. Chidinma stood there, with her forehead pressed against the cold glass, watching the darkness swallow everything. Ngozi's cries had quieted to whimpers. Chidi was silent, his small face buried in Adane's shoulder, and Amaka, brave, traumatized Amaka, just held onto Chidinma's leg and whispered, "Is Daddy coming back?" Chidinma couldn't answer, couldn't promise, couldn't lie to her daughter's face, so she just stroked her hair and stared at her own reflection in the dark glass and tried to remember how to breathe. The train rocked through Seoul's underground arteries, carrying them away from everything they knew, away from home, away from safety, away from the man who'd promised to protect them forever. Chidinma's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Unknown number, single message. You have what belongs to us. Don't be stupid. She wanted to keep the phone with her, but one thing was clear. If the syndicate knew about her pregnancy before she told anyone, then they could easily track them with that phone. She turned it off and dumped it on the floor recklessly, her heart shattering inside as she thought of her husband and how everything changed so quickly. Where is Ji-hoon? Was he caught by the syndicate or police? What was the fate of their little family, and who was behind their ordeals? Who was Minho working for? So that's part 5, family. Subscribe right now if you want to see how this ends. This is just the beginning of the end. Hit that like button because you've come too far to miss what happens next. Until next time, remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep moving forward when your whole world is falling apart. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in part 6. Thanks for watching.